Good evening. Welcome. This is the second talk in our series of Innovation with Impact. And the idea is that we showcase some of the activities that we've got going on at the University of Bath. My name's Siobhan Hone and I'm the Graduate Enterprise Manager at Bath. And I'm sure you know that the university plays a significant role in the city, not least because we're the second largest employer. The other thing that we do that you may not know quite so well is all the collaborations and partnerships with businesses and city institutions, and the businesses and business support that emerge as part of that. Our talks are going to feature this evening the University Alumni Innovation Award holders. So if I can just tell you a little bit about what that means, we take the brightest and the best of our entrepreneurial students, and when they've graduated, we support them with packages worth up to £20,000 for a full year so that they can work on their businesses full time. So the idea is that they can try out their business within that first year with a lot of support around it, and they can either fail really quickly or they can make a success of it. So we've got 4 of our award holders here tonight who are going to talk to you about their businesses. We're going to have 4 pitches, 10 minutes each, and then I'm going to take questions from the floor. Okay. So if I can introduce, first of all, Dr. Zoe Jeffrey. Zoe has just completed her PhD in health, and her business centres around an app to encourage young women to stay physically active in sport. Zoe.
Hi everybody, thank you so much for being here today. So my business is actually called Vibe Stride. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how that actually came about, and obviously where I'm going to be going with the business over the next year whilst I do the Innovation Award. So my PhD was actually in health and really focused on physical education and why some teenage girls disengage in school physical education. It was predominantly looking at the material aspects of PE, so really focusing on the clothing that the girls wear and obviously other material objects within PE. But one thing became quite adamant within all of my research, and that is that PE isn't actually very culturally relevant for young girls. So throughout my PhD, I actually worked with them in schools, using virtual reality and video gaming to really kind of try to reimagine what physical education could be like for them in school. And within some of the workshops, we actually came up with an app or an idea for an app, which actually really focuses on helping girls to start to value movement instead of maybe competition, because a lot of school PE and sports really focuses on competition. And a lot of these girls, well, basically I'll give you some statistics. So 20% of girls disengage in school PE, which means that they don't actually physically do anything. So they actually stay on the sidelines, not doing any PE. And many of these girls actually have things like ADHD, autism, they're from very traumatic backgrounds at home, but also they may care for one or two of their parents as well. So they've got a lot going on in their lives. So we got together and actually co-designed a physical education app, which is quite simplistic, I suppose, in its initial, I suppose, way. It's almost like Pokemon, so they would go around the school using augmented reality, actually collecting the ultimate sportswear, which is where potential brands, or I'm hoping that local brands might get involved, could actually sponsor some virtual clothing, and they would actually collect these virtual outfits, and they would get rewarded for doing challenges which are based upon their own ability, so no kind of stress for them to actually think that they've got to do certain things, because they're already going through a lot of stress. This app is actually for all girls in schools, so it's not just targeting, obviously, the ones that really need it. It's just that everyone can work together on this app. It's just an alternative way of actually doing some physical activity whilst helping those girls that really need it. So at the moment, I'm actually developing the app with the Department for Computer Science at the University of Bath. And I'm hoping to actually, over this coming year, actually develop the MVP, which is what this Alumni Award is actually going to be able to allow me to do. I've told you a little bit about the game. But the main thing really is that I'll be working with some charities like Sport England, and also hoping to get sort of fashion clothing brands or fitness clothing brands on board to actually help, with the potential partnerships really of getting these girls active, really. Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest, I think that's basically it at the moment. I'm really hoping that I can actually make good tracks over the coming year. I think actually spending a year on something that you have a great passion for is a real privilege, and I'm incredibly grateful to the enterprise team and for the donors as well to give me the chance to be able to do this, and to go back into schools as well to work with young girls, young women, because actually physical education, I mean, people might think, okay, well, what's PE? But in the future, these are girls that turn into women that may not actually enjoy physical activity throughout their life. So it's really quite important to actually get that health aspect in place for these girls, before it gets too late, really, because that has added cost to the NHS and other things like that, really. I'm hoping that actually VibeStride will bring some real traction to the city of Bath as well and surrounding areas. I mean, my actual, where I lived was actually in a place called Midsummer Norton, kind of like pockets of kind of rural poverty there. So I'm hoping that the whole kind of Bath and North East Somerset area will get some kind of, good things from VibeStride. Yeah, and that's me. Thank you.
Thanks, Zoe. Next up we have Ori Marash. Ori graduated with a first in computer science in July, and he is developing an AI-based way of extracting rugby analytics to improve team performances. Ori.
Hello. So my company is FrameSports.ai. Like Siobhan said, we're working on extracting data from rugby games. The problem that we're trying to tackle is that it currently takes way too long to extract data from these games. And by data, I mean events like player number 12 passed the ball to player number 15, 15 scrums happened in this game, the win percentage was 75%, etc., etc. So teams use this data to improve the performance of their players. Broadcasters use this data to engage with fans, and really a whole range of market segments has great use for this data. But extracting data from just one game takes over 4 hours and it costs over £100. So we're solving that with AI. Our solution is to use computer vision models that were recently impossible to make until recent advancements in technology to extract data from these games. So how it works is a rugby analyst, a coach, or a player uploads footage of their game to our platform. the AI analyzes the game and extracts all the data from it, and the user is presented with an infographic that shows all the data from the game and a way to download the data so that they can add it into whatever software they're already using. So the reason that we're better than our competitors is because we have higher quality data. So our AI models are able to extract data that was previously impossible to extract. We're much faster than any of our competitors, and that's obvious. I mean, the AI, we're able to parallelize that and extract data much faster than any human would be able to. As I said before, it costs over £100 for an analyst to extract data from one game, and we can do that for pennies. We're more reliable than an analyst because our AI models don't get tired. And we provide bulk analysis, so you're able to upload an entire season's worth of games, analyze them all at once. And that would obviously take ages for an analyst, but we can do that in very little time. So as I said, a range of market segments use this data and use our solution. So these are potential customers for each one of these categories. So a good way to think about our potential market is it's divided into people that already use data and that would benefit from having it be cheaper and faster. And the other half are people that aren't able to currently collect data, such as amateur teams. It's just too expensive at the moment to extract data, but amateur rugby teams definitely benefit from having that deep insight on their game so that they know how to improve their performance on the pitch. So there's not a lot of money in rugby, but this solution is scalable to other sports as well. 100 million total addressable market within rugby gives us plenty of room to get ourselves started and then expand into other sports. Our go-to-market plan is massively aided by the fact that my co-founder is a semi-professional rugby player. Through his connections in the rugby industry, we've managed to connect with Rugby Bricks, which is one of the fastest growing companies in New Zealand, I believe. They reach over 100 million fans every year by selling them rugby merchandise and jerseys. So through them, we've had great success in meeting with top teams and unions and people of interest. Anything else here? Yeah. We've made some great progress on this project. We've signed up 4 pilot rugby clubs, so they're right now, today, using the product. We've got some more live pilot conversations with other teams who are interested in the product. We also have open conversations with unions and leagues, I would say. We've already completed 15 paid client games, so this is very recently, like within the last couple of weeks. Very proud of that. And we have over 100 customers in our email list, just waiting to use the product. So a big question I had is, why has no one done this before? And the answer is simple: the technology hasn't been available. So until very recently, transformers haven't existed. This is the computer model that allows us to extract data from videos rather than static images and sort of use many frames to use that context to extract information from games. It's very important that we have a professional rugby player on our team because you need that domain knowledge to build a good AI, functioning AI model. And yeah, I'd say that it's quite hard to copy. Our competitors are sort of very interested in using our tech. It's a very challenging thing to make. Yeah, so looking into the future, we're now raising a pre-seed round to essentially keep working on the AI, make it better extract more data, and get to our revenue goals. So a bit about the team. I think we have a killer team. Lockie was previously a sales guy at another startup called Staxi, so he's been really great with the sales. Jake Andrews is our CTO, so he studied computer science at Uni of Bath and previously worked in a med tech company, so he's been doing great. We've hired him recently. And me, I'm also working on the tech, Ori Marash. I studied at Uni of Bath too, and very happily I won the Innovation Award, which has really helped in a lot of the expenses that we've had to make, whether it be the AI or servers or any sort of resources we need. But obviously we're trying to keep the costs as low as possible. And these are some of the advisors that we have on board. So I mentioned already Rugby Bricks, so that's these two guys on the end. We also have Rob McCusker, who's a professional rugby player, played for Scarlets, and Stefan Bennett, who's a head analyst at Scarlets as well. So really a great board of advisors that we have. And obviously support from all of our sponsors. And yeah, thanks so much for listening. Happy to answer any questions at the end.
Okay, next up we have Katie Little, and Katie is close to completing her PhD in chemical engineering. Katie's business involves developing custom smart home technology for dementia care.
Hello, I'm Katie. So in the UK, 1 in 3 of us will have a dementia diagnosis within our lifetime. When you combine this with the fact that there are currently 435,000 people on social care wait lists and a huge growth in that ageing population. So these stats at the bottom, currently there are 982,000 people in the UK with a dementia diagnosis. And with predicted numbers looking at 1.4 million by 2040, it shows this expanding problem. I suspect many of us in the room will have dealt with social care in one way or another. I'm very sorry if you've had to. The process currently is archaic, it's old, it's ill thought out, underfunded, and just they're not given the tools to thrive. When you look at carers currently, there are 10% of vacancies unfilled, and many people looking for care are given money by the government and left to their own devices to hire, to choose. It's an old system which has many flaws. For me personally, this came into play with my granddad. So about 1.5 years ago, his dementia got dramatically worse and his cognitive function really declined. Now for him, like many, the thought of having a carer in his home represented this huge loss of independence. There was also the cost implication and a lack of availability. For him, like many, having to have a rigid schedule, being up at 7 a.m. in the morning, going to bed at 7 p.m. every single night, because that's what a carer can facilitate. It's just not what you would choose, and it's not what most people would choose. So with this in mind, with my engineering background, I looked at it and thought, I think we can do some things with some smart home tech. It will never replace a carer completely, but it can negate some of that low-level care. So we set about with a few rounds of testing, I should add, but just to give you a bit of a flavour, in his bedroom, we now have, I think, 4 sensors in the bed, which trigger, they can tell him to get back into bed, they can link up to his alarm clock so that they wake him at the right time, and they keep alarming, and he'll tell you Alexa's very irritating, and she wakes me up every morning. But from there, we then have a series of sensors that walk him through his morning routine. For him, that looks like pressure pads under his hearing aids, sensors on the shower, the toothbrush, his sleep machine, all of the things that you or I would do naturally in the morning to get ourselves ready for the day. When we look at the front room, there are more sensors. There are things that look at his seating, look at whether he's drunk any water. One of my favourites currently is a coaster cup situation that monitors his liquid intake through the day, because if you have any family with dementia, you'll know that that is one of the key issues they face. And then the final bit, the bit he likes the best, is the kitchen. So we have a smart board in there that has his calendar updating, We also have some bits that we'll walk through with audio and visual clues to help him through cooking some of his simple meals. This is an example of what was in his home, and I thought the story would end there. I thought I'd get granddaughter of the year, walk away, wash my hands of it, but within a week I had 7 requests from other families within his network that wanted similar, who were facing the same challenges and weren't happy with what was currently available, which led us to Take Companion. So Take Companion takes those issues and builds out bespoke smart home systems to enable their independence for as long as possible. Every home is different. We have some set packages that will do a lot of the things that many people struggle with. So like the morning routine one is a very common one. But because of our system, we can add in specifics. If you happen to love cooking spag bol, we can build you in a process for that. If you happen to love walking the dog and you walk the dog at 6 a.m. every day, we can work things in for that. So we can add sensors to pretty much anything. We have those base packages and then we build around them. My journey so far, as I've said, was unexpected. It was never meant to be more than just me putting in place for them. And I've been very lucky that the university have supported me every step. When I first started this journey, I put in for Dragon's Den, thinking not much of it. I've had 2 rounds of Dragon's Den funding, and then I'm very grateful to be in receipt of the Alumni Innovation Award this year. But within that, I've met with multiple focus groups. I'm lucky enough to be in partnership with RS Components, who supply a lot of electrical pieces. So it's been a bit of a wild journey and not one I really expected to be having in the last year of my PhD, but I'm eternally grateful for it. And over the next year, we're looking at how we can scale, how we can roll it out so that it can be in more places than just I can be, with the hope that we can help those families and continue to grow and help more. With that in mind, that is my LinkedIn and my email address and my website. I'm happy to take any questions later today, but I'm also happy to connect with anyone that has further interest. Thank you for listening.
Next up, we have Jacopo, and Jacopo graduated back in July with a degree in international management and languages, and in particular Spanish. All the time, whilst he's doing his degree, he's also been developing his language revision startup. Jacopo.
Hi, I'm Jacopo and I'm the co-founder of what is soon to be called Sublingua, but what used to be called Estudiamos. So Estudiamos started off back in 2019 when I was a A-level student getting ready for my A-level exams. And around November, I had a lot of coursework for my history and economics, and I kind of dropped off the Spanish because it was really challenging for me, because the exam is marked in a very specific way, and I felt the teachers were not teaching it in an exam-specific format. So eventually what happened is I got into an argument with my Spanish teacher in class, and it turned into a bit of me getting really frustrated at her. And naturally, I got detention for this. And during that detention, I started working on making some exam-specific worksheets that we could use as a class, kind of partly to spite her, just to show that I'm right. And we tested them out, and it turns out that all of our grades went up by 1 grade boundary per person. So we went from a class where there were 8 of us in the class, all of us were getting around a C, and we all went up to a B grade in 1 week, because of these exam-specific and this exam-focused study. I should also add that in my class there were 8 of us, 4 of which were fluent in Spanish. So the exam is so specific that it's very hard to get the right type of Spanish that the examiners want. So that's why it's such a challenge for people who are studying languages and people who have parents who are Spanish, French or German to actually get their kids to get really high grades, even though they feel like they deserve those grades because, well, they're Spanish or French or German. So after that, I went away after my A-levels, and I started thinking about, could we turn that exam-specific stuff into a online platform? And I started building a business model, and it turns out that I probably could if I digitalize everything and make it self-marking. So it removes the teacher from the equation when it comes to exam revision, because teachers are already overworked as it is. So that's when I started Estudiamos, when I joined Bath in my first year. Estudiamos is a language revision tool currently for students studying Spanish, and we do gap fill and multiple choice exercises right now, just so then it's all self-marking. But all of our worksheets are made by teachers who are teaching that syllabus. So they are all they're all curriculum specific, which is something which the competitors don't do so well. The competitors, they focus on a more generic approach to languages where they where they focus on how can we get this student to be really good at Spanish overall. And this doesn't really help with the exam because, as we learn, native speakers can also get really bad grades. So when I came into uni, I also met my now co-founder, Yosh, and we started building out the platform. And we started brainstorming about what features to add. And we starting off with the grammar section, which I started developing with the help of the University of Bath Dragons, then round 1 and round 2, where I got my first initial funding, where I started building this MVP, and I actually presented the MVP at a conference for EdTech. And the feedback from that was really, really positive from teachers. From there, we started adding some more features and started exploring how can we get this in the hands of students quickly, and how can we get this into the hands of schools, so what features are different. So then I was able to, thanks to the University of Bath, I went and did a placement in Spain, in Madrid, where I was able to work on my startup full-time, rather than taking on either learning more, doing a university year there or doing a industrial placement. So on my placement, I was able to get a feel for the language schools market as well. So these are schools which are in Spain, where they teach Spanish to English people who are now living in Spain. I was also able to attend more conferences and work on it full time. So we made quite a big dent. And then when I came back, I did Dragon's Den again. And there we started to implement more features like the schools platform. And now we're getting ready to launch. After that, I started going to a lot of conferences, and we were able to get 40 schools interested in using our platform. And we also were able to see 35 users use the platform. And that brings me on to now. So ever since I got the Innovation Award, I've been going away with my co-founder. We've started to develop the new brand Sublingua. Now, Estudiamos was a bit old for us. It felt not fun. And Estudiamos means let's study, but it means we study, but in Spanish. So we want to target French and German as well next year. So that's why we rebranded to Sublingua. And Sublingua, we will be, in the next few weeks, we're launching a B2C platform. So that's just aimed at students who are doing their GCSE or A-level exams soon or in a year's time. And it will feature exam-specific resources, which gap fill and multiple choice, same as I mentioned before. And then for schools, we are launching that hopefully in January at the BET conference, which is a really big EdTech show in London. So with the schools platform, we want schools to be able to see all of their classes' grades, set homework, and even eventually create their own resources and digitalize their existing resources, which is something which no other EdTech has currently done in the language space. So if you know a school or you know any parents who have GCSE and A-level students, I'd love to hear your feedback or their feedback as well on this project and this company. Thank you so much, and I look forward to your questions.
Okay, so questions. Are there any questions? So, have you? Is your question for a specific graduate?
Yeah, FrameSports. The question I had there is, how are you planning to make girls aware of the app?
Can I just say, apparently when you ask a question, because it's being recorded, I have to repeat the question. Okay, and also Zoe has to come up here and answer it. So your question was, how are you going to make girls aware of the app?
Oh, thanks. Good question. Well, I've actually already been working with the girls. I've worked with 42 girls over 2 secondary schools, local ones, but I'm actually rolling that out nationally. So I'm actually going to be going into schools across the country to actually, they will be co-designing, or they have been co-designing the app with me. So that's how they know about the app. In terms of actually how to get other girls actually, how to get them involved or how to let them know about the app, I'm sure it would be all of the social media channels like TikTok, Snapchat, all of the kind of stuff that they use basically. And word of mouth, like through friends and things like that. Is that okay? Yeah? Cool.
Thank you. You had another question, sir?
I did, yeah. Does anybody else want to ask?
Okay, a gentleman at the back.
Yeah, good question for Mr. Marashi.
Mr. Marash.
Yes.
Yeah. Ori, can I get you up here?
I was wondering about the quality of data sets for rugby and whether you had to develop your own, how much you had to do that, or sort of the availability for it.
Okay, so Ori's going to answer a question about the quality of the data sets that he's got. Okay.
So we've been curating our own data set, but we've also been working with existing rugby analysis companies and basically collaborating on their existing data sets to build up one massive data set of over 1,000 games, all fully coded with 8 angles. So just putting that all together for the computer vision model, and then some custom data sets too.
This gentleman, yeah.
Again for Ori, what can your AI model do and what can't it do yet? And what are you looking to innovate on further?
Okay, so what can your AI model do? What can't it do? And what do you want to innovate on? It helps me if you ask me like one question at a time.
So right now we've got good accuracy on identifying scrums, who won scrums, and who has possession during the scrum. Same thing for lineouts, so who's taking the line out and who won it. And same for rucks. So, sorry, I don't know how much rugby terminology everyone knows, but these are pretty like basic terms, like basic actions during the game. So what we want to innovate on further is some of the more fast-paced events, which we've been having trouble coding, as do even humans have problems coding these. So that's passes and tackles are the next two that we're working on.
Thank you. Could I come back to you, sir, for your next question?
Okay, thank you. This question is for Katie.
Okay.
And I'm going to put some context to this, which I don't expect you to repeat.
Okay. They tell me I've got to repeat though, so I'll just try and repeat just the question. Yeah.
So the context is, I really identify the situation with your grandfather. I expect other people to do. My mother got dementia. She's sadly no longer with us. About 10 years ago. And I remember she was living alone, looking into things that could help her. And there were, even at that time, quite a lot of technology that I was looking at in particular. In fact, I went up to the RUH, they had even a little place in the RUH where they could advise you on it. So my question really is, what does your companion, how does that improve on what's already been out there?
Okay, so Katie, how does what you're doing improve on what's already out there?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. So basically, a lot of the tech is reliant on you having a basic understanding to begin with. So when you went and had those conversations, you came in looking for solutions, which is great when family members have those options. That's great. It's not always the case. And then when you add into that, a lot of the tech designed for dementia care specifically is very piecemeal. It'll do one thing. You might have a fall detector, you might have a phone with larger buttons, you have items which alone do one singular function, and there is no cohesion, there's no thought of actually having a fall detector is great, but it doesn't allow for everything else. So the thing that mine does differently is that it looks at your home as a whole system. So the packages all talk to each other, they all interact with each other, the sensors all form this network. So it lets you have these more complicated processes rather than singular object items. Does that kind of answer your question?
So,
Hi, question for Katie again. I think it's a really compelling proposition that you have. I'm just wondering who your end customer is. Is it social services or is it individuals who need to be cared for?
that is a really good question. So, who is Katie's customer? Something we've been trying to kind of work out, haven't we?
So it has been a discussion. So there's definitely an argument for it being social care and it being something that is prescribed, so to speak, or that people are pointed towards. And that would be amazing. And hopefully in the future we will build those links with social care in different areas, and it will be something that they're pointing people towards. In the UK, a lot of care is either self-funded or is funded through direct payments. So the carer or whoever is their care network is given a direct payment of funds and basically told, do as you will, provide care for your loved one or patient themselves, depending on capacity. So currently, the primary customer will be that patient-carer duo, so to speak. So 47% of care in the UK is unpaid carers, and even those who are not just unpaid carers, usually if you have a dementia patient, there will be someone who is taking on that primary care role within their family network. So they are primarily the target audience currently, but we definitely would love to work with social care in the future. But I think there's a lot more red tape to work directly with social care rather than with carers and customers directly.
I think it's true to say that if anybody's got any ideas about that kind of model,
so many thoughts.
then we'd be really interested to hear that and to think about that. There's so many different ways that you could go with this, and trying to hit on that one that actually feels right for you is taking a bit of time, isn't it? Because we think we've got it, and then people go, oh no, you've got to do this, and then that's not quite right. So it's a really interesting question. Okay. So,
One for Ori is really, where do you think the biggest area of your market is?
okay, so quite an easy question for me.
Rugby, in rugby.
In rugby, where's the biggest area of your market?
So there are a lot of amateur, semi-professional and professional teams all around the world. Each one we're looking at signing a small deal with, I would say, and then that sort of adds up really quickly. So teams are the biggest, but then we're also looking at selling to leagues who often provide the same kind of service. So the league will pay for every game within that league to be analyzed, and then they distribute the data to all the teams involved in the league, and that way teams can analyze their opponent's games and try to get an edge that way. And since everyone is doing that, it essentially just boosts the game and everybody plays better. And what that means is that you have a lot of games, but also a lot of funding to make sure that the accuracy is high as possible. So leagues is definitely like the number 2 that we're looking at. And then, I mean, you saw that I think there are like 12 different potential market segments. So some of the crazy ideas we've had are broadcasters, where they sometimes show the stats during the game as something to talk about, and fans as well who want to understand what's happening in the game, and sports books who want to inform the betting odds. But those are definitely some of the smaller customers when you look at just the volume of teams and leagues.
So,
Zoe, why not instantly double your potential market and make a proposition for boys?
The boys.
Okay, so why just aim it at girls? Why not include boys in that?
Yeah.
Double your market.
Yeah, definitely. Well, my PhD was very much focused on girls and the disengagement that they face. Well, they face an awful lot more barriers than boys do. So initially, the actual app is to encourage girls to become more active, because there is actually a disparity between boys and girls. I can't remember the stat exactly now, but I think it's something like 40-something% gap between, you know, girls and boys' activity levels, both inside and outside of school. So I think really, also as well, we do actually have still an issue with obviously male and boys sports being more dominant than girls. So it's really just trying to encourage them in a very sort of, I suppose, an easy way, especially the ones that are actually facing some real difficult barriers. Understandably, that is the case for boys as well, but absolutely, I'd love to actually do this first for my target audience in the schools, and then actually widen it. Certainly, that is actually on the horizon, definitely. Did that answer? Yeah, thanks.
Yes, sir.
It's a question for everybody.
Okay.
I've really enjoyed the presentations, thank you. Obviously, everyone's talking scale. When I say this is someone as a funder in the public sector. What's the one thing each one of you you perhaps sees your biggest challenge to scale? And you can't just say money. So, what is it? If the public sector could provide you with further support, what would it be to scale? Each one of you.
Okay, so, sorry, was that two questions? What's your biggest problem? And you can't just say money.
What's the biggest problem having the public sector help with alleviate that?
Okay, so what's the biggest problem that you have, and what support would you need to solve that? Yeah? I'm going to start with Yakuto, because you've got off quite lightly.
I would say it's hard to answer without saying money, because as a student founder, that is the big issue. But it ties into money, but probably like getting the right talent in, and getting the right talent in early is the main issue for us, because why would someone go to a startup run by a 23-year-old when they could go to, even if they want to go into the startup space, a startup run by someone who's much more experienced? So potentially a public sector scheme which promotes younger founders or recent graduates and provides them with talent or promotes their job opportunities in a certain way, because we are looking for developers right now to build out the platform, but obviously we can't offer as competitive of a salary, and we can still offer equity, but it's why would they come to us and not go to someone who on paper has more experience and looks more experienced as well? That's my biggest issue right now.
Sorry?
So actually, for me, I was going to actually say making it easier potentially for access to schools, or the people that actually make the decisions in terms of obviously where the money's spent, etc. I think that is a big challenge, I think, for me to not so much go into the schools and work with the girls on co-designing this. That's actually quite easy to do, but then it's actually getting the buy-in. I think, especially being publicly funded, it's actually really kind of more support, I think, in that area. But for me, I don't know if that's the same as you as well. Yeah.
For me, the biggest issue for scale up is making sure that we've got all the process in. So obviously we're dealing with a vulnerable group, and I am not willing to put anyone at risk. So for us, that scale up piece relies on us having systems in place to responsibly vet anyone that we're going to advocate for, and making sure that that scale up is done in the most well thought out, and making sure as best we can that no one is left in a worse position when we leave than when we started. That piggybacks with, obviously there's data within our system that we need ways of making sure we can responsibly contain or avoid containing that, so for us, that's our big scale up point of, it's a challenge, it's not unachievable, it just needs handled carefully and made sure that it's done properly, because I would hate to get 6 months in and there be an issue of that nature. I think from a public funding sector side, I think I'd echo that availability of people is far more of interest to me than the availability of money. Obviously, every startup would love some more investment and love cash, like that's the reality of it. But for me, having people to talk to and having people to be in that room with and collaborate with and make sure that the products we're putting forward match the needs as best possible, and having those decision makers engaging with you is the most beneficial thing I could have.
You don't have an answer?
Okay.
Really?
Don't know.
Okay. Any more? Yes, sir.
How many students from the University of Bath do you have on your teams right now?
Okay, so how many students from the University of Bath do you each have on your teams? Okay.
Currently 6 who have joined today as part of an entrepreneurship project. So it's called the entrepreneurship project, where it's School of Management students. I think they're studying either business or management, and they have to do a 1 semester module where they have to work at a startup and get experience through that. So we have 6 working on a B2B strategy and how we can enter that market and how we can tackle schools, and let's start work on that. Tomorrow we have our first meeting. And then we've had in the past quite a few, mainly developers, where they wanted some experience for coding, and we paid them like actually quite reasonable per hour wage to do that. And then we've also done iKeep, which is now called
Intra.
Intra, which is an entrepreneurship program where we get some students who can come aboard a startup and get entrepreneurship skills and growth with this, and help the startup for a few weeks. I can't remember exactly how long, but it's a few weeks working on
4 weeks.
4 weeks, working on projects and stuff within the startup.
Have you got anyone?
Well, I will. No, I was going to say actually, because I've had about 6 students so far from the Intra Was I Keep project, and that has been absolutely fantastic to actually have them on board. Business and management, things that I need help with, definitely, because I'm more of the kind of product ideas person. So that's been really good to work with them. I'm also going to be working with the University of Bath's Computer Science Department as well, so I should hopefully be getting student support from there as well. So yes, a lot of support from the uni.
Yeah, so one of our co-founders is from Uni of Bath, actually all 3, and we have a software developer from Uni of Bath as well, who's I think currently 2nd year. So 4. Yeah, and we did iKeep, so we had 4 students, thanks to Pascal, who set up a pricing structure, and I think they helped with the pitch deck as well.
Mine's a shorter answer, it's just me. No, so we're hopefully going to have some mechanical engineering final years doing their project with us later in the year. But yeah, currently it is just me. That's it. But if anyone happens to be interested, Uni of Bath or otherwise, happy to talk with anyone.
Okay, that was a good question. Anybody got an even better question? Yes, sir?
I'll try with better. I'm also a public sector innovation funder. And we've clearly addressed how the public sector might get over barriers. I'm more interested in what if an opportunity is created for you. What would you do with 50 grand of investment right now?
Okay, right. Go for it, Katie. Oh yeah, thank you. I'm so going to get into trouble if I don't repeat the question. So what would each of you do if you had 50 grand's worth of investment right now?
So for me, before I can roll out, I need to speak to a lawyer and get everything done with them. So a lawyer would be great. The second piece, what I'm hoping is that we will be in a position where we'll have enough money in the pot to purchase a lot of the kit and then use a rental model so that the customers don't have to fork out all in one go. So we can offer it a much more reasonable, much more affordable method for them, with the whole thing being if we can get it under the cost of 1 hour of a carer's time per month, it makes a much more biddable and a much easier option, because my whole thing is the more people we can help, the better. It was never meant to be a business. It was always that from my side, what I want is to have that reach and that network, that I would use it to purchase those initial stocks so that we could offer a rental model to those that can't afford the initial buy-in.
Oh gosh, 50 grand. Okay, I think realistically I would like to actually get a minimum viable product done, or maybe even beyond that. Working with schools, I think my main thing really is to work with them, to give them the product that they actually really want to use. It's the girls' app actually, so it really belongs to them. So anything that could really help me to actually get that product into schools, helping those girls that really need it, and to obviously help with, because what I failed to actually say in my little speech was that actually there will be Vibe Stride coaches as well to actually ease the resources with schools. So it would be to pay maybe young people at university to actually come in and actually work with the girls with this app so that they're not just left to their own devices, because that would not be right. So really get it to a really good standard of MVP so we can actually go into schools and test it. I think that would be weird.
And just stay there a second, Zoe, because one of the other things that you were interested in was people with connections, because one of the other things you might do is use it for a bit of marketing and a bit of collaboration.
Yeah, oh, okay, thank you. Sorry, everybody. So basically, my real big thing at the moment is trying to get local, kind of like either local businesses or maybe national business to actually sponsor basically virtual clothing. So I'm really looking at kind of clothing brands or even kind of like sports brands really to actually help me to develop some of these virtual clothing ranges that the girls will be going around collecting when they're playing their game. So if anybody knows anybody or could potentially put me in touch with any contacts, that would be very, very good.
And worth possibly more than 50 grand.
Worth more than 50 grand, absolutely. Yes, definitely.
All right.
Yeah, so it's interesting working in sort of an AI company right at the beginning, because there's a lot of these random research projects that we run. So it's a lot of like, okay, here's an idea for how we can analyze tackles. Let's get like 1,000 videos of tackles, see if this model works. And oh, it doesn't. So we'll try this other thing instead, and sort of do that 100 times until you have enough bits to build a product. So I think with funding, we're able to essentially run more of those projects and faster. So it's sort of like rolling the dice more times. There's going to be a higher chance that you roll a 6. So I'd say that's what we would use the funding for. So that's inference cost, cost of labeling data, and for developers.
So for us, half of it we probably spent on development, so getting that teacher section finished, so then we can start launching to schools. And then after that, the rest of it, we actually had a really good program where we had Spanish teachers working with us to develop worksheets, to make worksheets and test them out in their classrooms, and then we would upload them so we had exam-specific content on there. We have 250 worksheets through that, but obviously we believe in paying teachers a fair wage and making sure they can actually do that work, because it is extra work on top of their workload. So we stopped that for a bit because we had quite a lot of worksheets that we can use, but I would, with the money, start that program again and get more variety of teachers, and we could then build out different exam boards, because different boards want different types of content. The new exam syllabus just got released for GCSE, so we have to create worksheets for the next 4 years as well, and then also for French and German. So creating worksheets, developing the app, and then the rest of it would be used for marketing, mainly to reach schools. And to reach schools, but I feel like a lot of it would be used to reach parents, because I think the B2C would be much more marketing heavy than the B2B. B2B will take a lot longer, but we don't have to spend as much money, because it only takes one person, but then we have to keep going at it and chasing. Whereas B2C is just mainly going to be word of mouth or spending money on social media marketing. So those are the things.
Okay, some great answers there. Any final questions or final thoughts from anyone? Yeah.
I'd like to ask, if you weren't awarded the Alumni Innovation Award, what would you be doing this year? Would you be continuing to try and launch your business, or how would it look for you?
Okay, so what would you do if you hadn't got the Innovation Award? Would you still be doing your business? What would life be looking like for you?
I have to go first, but actually, I've been giving this question a lot of thought recently, because we've come to a point in the business where we've started to pivot towards rethinking the strategy and everything. So I did think, what would it have looked like if I didn't get the Innovation Award? And with where it is at now, where we're not generating revenue, but we could be soon, I found out about the Innovation Award a while ago, so I could have applied for a graduate job, and I would have probably either gotten one or done an entry-level job, which would have left me with a much more secure option, but I wouldn't have been able to explore this business probably any further, because we need to get development. I need to be on it full-time. My co-founder just took on a full-time job as well, and they're going to be working on the business part-time. So if both of us are on the business part-time, I don't think it would actually progress to revenue generating product that can be scalable. We'd still probably be able to launch it, but we won't be able to really push for the better features, innovate. So it would probably last another 6 months and it would have gone bust. Also, the funding that I got from it, most of it's going to go into the business, because I'm living luckily at home with my parents and putting the funding into the business as and when I need it. So in the business's account right now, we have probably enough for 1 more month. So yeah, probably in a month's time, unless something got some money, which it would have been gone within 1 to 6 months, I reckon.
Gosh.
Yeah, I mean, it's true.
I believe you. Ori.
So I think I'd still be working on FrameSports, but it might be going a bit slower.
Fair enough. What would you be doing?
What am I doing? So basically, I would have probably got a postdoc, which I do have, but so basically working like I am now, basically with the job and doing the business at the same time, which is great. I'm used to doing kind of like quite a lot of stuff. I'm lucky because I do work in the computer science department, so they're going to be helping me to develop VibeStride as part of their Impact Awards, I think, or something. So, yeah, it's all worked out well.
For me, the difference would be, initially, I would have just been dealing with those 7 people that have already come to me. Rather than looking at commercialising it straight away, I would have been focused on, can I help people that need the help? And that's the honest thing. It would have shifted the focus to being, I'd have had to work alongside, but I would have been focused on, can I help those people? And then we'll see how it goes. And it might have been a slower process, and it might have still ended up as a business, and I hope it would have. But it also might have just ended up being that every weekend I was at someone else's house putting in tech to their home. I'm very grateful that I've had this opportunity, and it's not one that if you told me a year ago I'd be stood here, I would have probably laughed. So it's, yeah.
Great answer. Thank you. Okay, well, thank you very much. I wonder if we could, before we give our speakers a round of applause, if I could just do a plug for the next talk, which is on the 12th of November, the next one in the series, and that's with Dr. Millie Stone, who's going to look at explore the role of one of the university's entrepreneurs in residence and the bridge that they make between academia and industry. So she's a really good speaker. So 12th of November, Millie will be here. Thank you to everybody for coming. Thank you to Brisley for giving us this space and this opportunity. And I'm sure you'll agree with me, it's been great to hear what 4 young innovators are doing. So if we could thank them for their presentation.